Cool. Hey everyone, this is our presentation, adding continuing education to the mix. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. So my name is Riley. I am from the Alpha Omega chapter at Florida State University, and I'm the Southeast District Vice President of Membership. And Emily.
And I'm Emily Donovan. I am a life member of the Eta Gamma chapter at Boston University, and I am a current chapter visitation assistant for the sorority, along with some other fun things like being on the curriculum committee.
Yeah, so we have a little CMEP presentation. So first we're going to do a practice lesson. So I'm going to present an actual CMEP, just like I would present it to my chapter at like a chapter meeting, because that's usually when we do CMEPs. So we'll do that first, and then we'll talk about it and do some other stuff after that. So this is my Who is WAVA presentation. This is not originally mine. I used it for a different workshop, and someone else helped me make it, and then I revitalized it. So I don't take credit, but it's a great presentation. So who is WAVA? History on our founder. This is obviously WAVA. So the beginnings of WAVA's career, we have WAVA Baines was born in Cleveland, Oklahoma on March 14th, 1920. Hold on, I have to pull up the thing I was supposed to, my notes, because I'm silly. Yeah, so she grew up in the oil fields of Oklahoma and Texas, which is an interesting tidbit that I didn't know before this presentation. She graduated from Wink, Texas High School in 1936, and her parents made her observe a gap year before high school, or between high school and college. So that's just a little information about her. She started school at Texas Tech in 1937, Texas Technological College. And here she became one of the first female members of the marching band due to the Second World War and the male involvement in that. So women were taking over in many areas of life. So she founded Tau Beta Sigma in 1939 when she observed a disparity between the opportunities that men and women were given in the band world. So she created an institution that would give the same benefits to women that KK Psi did to men, because KK Psi was founded in 1919, so they already existed. And she also wanted to serve the band and thought that that shouldn't be an exclusively male thing to do. So Emily Sorrell and Ruth Linnell assisted in the club's creation. And then WAVA became the first woman at Texas Tech to graduate with a band literature, which is a music education degree, in the summer of 1940, which I thought was very interesting. So that's cool. Here we have her early adulthood. So since most schools were not accepting women into their band programs, there were no or little band directors in the world at the time. So this makes WAVA a member of the first generation of female band directors, which is cool. And she got a job in Ovaca, Texas in the fall of 1940. And she taught chorus and band to all grades there. And she was interesting. She was also expected to coach basketball and track. So that's fun. In 1941, she married her first husband, Jack Turner, who was a KK Psi man and had been a founding member of the Alpha Omicron chapter of KK Psi. And they lived together in Lubbock, Texas. And when Jack joined the Army Air Forces in 1943, WAVA left the school that she was working at and began working at a local music store, which they eventually owned together. So when Jack got back from the war, she resumed her work as a band director, and they continued to own their store. And then the band club she had founded with her friends back in 1939, Tau Beta Sigma, became a true sorority in 1946. So WAVA had graduated, she was off doing her thing when they took it to A. Frank Martin and got it officially founded. So here we have tragedy and success. So WAVA's husband, Jack, passed away at a young age, leaving WAVA a widow. So while this was a sad time in her life, it inspired change and informed her decision to go back to school for a counseling degree. So after her and Jack's instrument store eventually closed and she stopped working there, WAVA was never really heavily involved in the band world again. She moved to Aspen, Colorado in 1961 and became a math teacher and a counselor for a local school. And she ceased being involved with the functions of TBS when she became a teacher. So she was kind of cut off from the band world. So she eventually became re-involved with the sorority. So in 1971, WAVA attended the National Convention for Tau Beta Sigma and became an honorary honorary member of the national chapter. And in 1975, WAVA was appointed to the Board of Trustees for Tau Beta Sigma as a lifetime member, and she served in this role until her passing in 2012. So these are a bunch of pictures from the archives. Emily insisted that we included this one, and I agree. I think that it's a pretty good picture with some Texas Tech guys and WAVA, but yeah, these are just some fun photos. And then in her later years, she was remarried to a man named Renee Henry in 1981, and they remained together for the rest of her life. And then she eventually passed away on October 16th, 2012 in Colorado. And she was survived by her husband and her daughter and 3 granddaughters. So that's WAVA's life. And we have the WAVA Memorial Garden in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So it was founded in 2014. And it's located at national headquarters. It includes a black granite pedestal with a bronze relief portrait dedicated to WAVA, a marble ground foundation of our crest, and the symbolic items. Oh, I'm speaking. Benches for reflection and meditation, a rose garden, and other garden flowers and shrubs. And it provides a quiet place for those who visit and reflect on WAVA and the impact she's had on Tau Beta Sigma. So I've never been to the garden, but I'm sure Siobhan and Emily, you likely have. If you want to share any experience you have with the garden, that'd be cool.
It is really cool. You can't see in the picture here is that white wall, and it actually goes all around the side of it, closing to connecting the Stillwater Station building. And all over there is where all the rose bushes are. And we do have a fund that the Board of Trustees, you can contribute to, and the Board of Trustees manages that, goes to the continued beautification and taking care of the WAVA gardens. 2 interesting factoids. So on the granite pedestal with the portrait of WAVA, originally it had these like red stones where the eyes were, and it looked really weird. And so we had them taken off. It looked like laser eyes. It was a little scary. So that's a funny thing. And actually, I think it was part of WAVA's last wishes was that a little bit of her be left there. And so her daughter, WAVA, I believe, was cremated, and her daughter did bring a little bit of her ashes, and they sprinkled it in the rose garden whenever we dedicated it back in 2014. And I do believe the rest of it is in our archive. So WAVA's there in spirit, and a little bit of her there as well. In the Memorial Garden. It's a really cool place, and there's a couple benches. I think there's a pergola in the back that is over top of it. It's kind of in the back, kind of where Riley's pointer is. And I think that was actually a bench that was dedicated to the Eta Delta chapter at Howard University, and then a little pergola over it. So it's a really cool place. It's a neat thing to see, and yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very cool. Didn't know any of that, so appreciate that. And then here's some more pictures of it, so you can see like more of the garden back here that Siobhan was talking about, and the pedestal here without the laser eyes. So, and then also in her honor, we have the WAVA Banks Turner Award, and this award is presented each biennium to one member who has demonstrated outstanding and continued service to Tau Beta Sigma. Here's a picture from that. And then the Tau Beta Sigma WAVA Scholarship. This award is designed to provide assistance to women who are preparing to enter the field of music education. So here we have the 2020 Tau Beta Sigma Scholarship recipients. Yeah, and that's like a cool way we continue her legacy. And so now we can have a little conversation about it. So WAVA's legacy. How can we continue on WAVA's distinguished legacy throughout our everyday actions as sisters? And as a sister of Tau Beta Sigma, what do you want your legacy to be? So if anyone would like to unmute and answer either or both of these questions, you can totally do that and we can have a little discussion.
I'm going to jump in here. Something I've never thought about until literally this moment and like through this presentation was sometimes the value of like I like how, I mean, WAVA's experience with developing Tau Beta Sigma, it was just an idea for her and she started a club with some friends, but like she didn't know that this would grow to where it is now. And I think that even looking at how she was there, she was a leader, and even just like stepping away and letting other people lead, there's a lot of value in that. Because I know many of us have experienced, alumni, somebody who just graduated, but still like super involved in like chapter business, still telling you what to do and this, that, and the other. But sometimes, and you just want to lead. And I think there's value. And also, a good thing as a leader is just letting the people that come after you or that you're working with, to just let them lead. And that's one thing that this kind of presentation sparked in my brain today.
Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else can go. You can just unmute and speak if you dare.
I feel like a very important part of WAVA's legacy was that she just cared so much about serving the band. Like she started TVS because she wanted to serve the band in the absence of the people who were doing it before her, because she cared so much about the band. So personally, I would want my legacy as a sister to be just somebody who cared that much about the band.
Yeah.
Something that struck me for the first time, because Javon and I always have new thoughts whenever we listen to the same history presentations, is the ability to pivot. And I know we talked a lot about that during COVID, right, with our pivot guidance and everything for Tau Beta Sigma. But WAVA started out thinking, okay, band is, and I'm going to be a band director, and she did that for a time. And then she says, you know what, something else happened in my life. It's okay to change course. And I think it's also something I think about, like in serving our bands and working as our chapters, right? Like we set out with our ideals and what we want to do, but it's okay to say, hey, we might need to do something different. And it's based on what's happening right now in front of us and trying to figure that out, while still, it seems like, thinking about from wanting to serve the bands and then wanting to be a teacher and a band director, then wanting to go into counseling, like it's all still grounded in her values, right? It's also grounded in helping other people. But it's okay to say that life can take you in kind of a windy way. I wonder if she knew she was going to end up in Colorado, right? She was born in Texas, went to school in Texas, and then ends up in Colorado. It's kind of interesting. So just a good reminder for us all that life can take you down unexpected places sometimes, and that's good. But seems like staying true to your values is also really important.
Yeah, so true. Does anyone else want to share anything, any thoughts?
Sure.
Okay.
I think the way that we as sisters continue to honor WAVA's legacy is just keeping this organization strong, and that we're continuing to work and continuing trying to better this organization while we're actives, and then when beyond when we're actives, hopefully. And as a sister, what do I want? Like, what do I think the future is? I don't know. And I know for like me personally, like things have changed and things didn't always go the way I intended. And I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do next in this sorority, but I think knowing that there's things to continue to do and continuing to work beyond that is important.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I've thought of is just like how easy it is to make a difference with like something in the world. Because like Siobhan said, or Emily, someone said, like WAVA never thought that this was gonna turn into like this big thing. She just did something that she wanted to do. And just I myself in my life have been trying to decide like what can I do to make a difference in just beyond my own life. And I feel like I and others like find ourselves striving to do these things to like find a difference when you don't have to really do that. You could just make a difference in an area that you're already in. Like she just wanted to serve the band, so she did this, and it turned into this whole national organization, which is very cool. And just, I mean, I could even see that in my own sorority experience of like when I was a candidate, I could never imagine the space that I would be now. Like I'm giving a presentation to all of you and I'm district vice president, and it just keeps building. And I don't know, it's just something, being able to make a difference like without even thinking about it is very cool. And I feel like WAVA has paved the way for all of us to do that. Yeah, any final thoughts before we move on? Cool. So these are our references. A lot of them were done by the person that I did this with. I can't remember her name. I think it was Alexa. But shout out to her. She rocks for doing all this research. And that's the Who is WAVA presentation. So now we'll go back to our actual presentation. So that was kind of meta. It was a presentation inside a presentation. So what did you notice about our practice lesson here? Like, as opposed to other lessons you've seen, CMEPs that you've done or have seen done, like differences between this and overture. If Emily, you want to say anything too, but just what'd you notice during the presentation?
I noticed my chapter doesn't do CMEPs or hasn't in the past. And so I liked that it was kind of like the bones I recognized, like there were facts in it from overture that I knew, but then you took it to like a whole different level that made her more of a person, I guess, more than the like 3 things that we learn about her. So I like the fleshing out and the like whole story.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There was lots that I didn't know. And as I was doing the presentation for this, it's like, this is such interesting stuff. But yeah, other things.
It goes beyond just the information, and it encourages people to think about how to apply it to themselves and their chapter.
Yeah. And reflection is a really big part of like CMEPs, you know, teaching the information, reflecting on how it's relevant and how we should continue to learn this information. So always include a reflection in your CMEPs. They're super important. Yeah, any final thoughts on this before we move on?
Yeah, and I'll just add on the reflection piece. If anybody else wants to jump in, please feel free. But you know, you got to think about it as a candidate when you're going through overture and going through your process. You know, you have your lived experience, your life experience, but you don't have sister experience, right? So when we're thinking about continuing membership education lessons or activities, whatever they might be, we want to kind of leverage that idea that you now have some experience being a sister. So how can you build upon that in the lessons? That's why reflections are really, really critical to CMEP workshops or lesson or activities. The other thing that I noticed is we just did that plus our little meta thing in like 15 minutes. So I know we're going to talk more about scheduling and time and all of that, but I just wanted to point that out, that oftentimes something you might hear from, people in your chapter when you're like, oh, we're gonna do another thing. It's like, this just took 15 minutes of our time, and maybe the conversation would go a little bit longer in your chapter meeting, but you also could go through the content quicker, and like you could do it however you wanted to. So just notice that it's like 15 minutes total, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. So this is our little schedule for the day. Intro. So we already did our intros and practice lessons. So we're done with that. We're going to go into how you can do a CMEP. So the whys, whos, whens, and whats, the spectrum of it from like the small CMEPs all the way to overture size CMEPs, and then resources that you can use. So what's the point? So how can this help? Like, what's the point of doing a CMEP? I feel like that's often a question that gets asked in my chapter and others. Like, we already learned this in overture. Why do we need to keep doing it? Like, we've already learned this, blah, blah, blah. So continuous learning experience, just because you learn it once doesn't mean there's not more to learn or a different way to see it when you do it again. So even if it's the same information, doing like overture recaps that you've done with your candidates, it's always good to have that information fresh, especially if you have candidates, because then what does it look like when a candidate knows something and they go up and they're like, hey, blah, 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 let me talk to you about this. And a sister doesn't remember that. So continuing that those learning experiences, engagement with the TV Sigma content and a connection to the bigger picture. So same thing, just like continually being engaged in the content. Like, yes, our sorority is social and we have like that social aspect is really important, but the content is also really important, and keeping that fresh in everyone's mind, remembering why we're here, talking about it, bettering yourself as an individual. CMEPs don't have to be strictly TBS overture content. They can be professional, they can be mental health wise, like they don't fit into this box. So there's always things that we can do, learning from each other, that are going to help better us as individuals and as a whole. Chapter bonding, cohesion, and identity. You can do different CMEPs about bonding, get more input from your sisters, see what they think about something, see from different perspectives. And then promoting participation of active members with candidates and each other. So like I said about like the candidates and sisters interacting about information, it's important for actives to know like what your candidates are learning at the time. And so like so candidates can see like this information is important. It's gonna stay with you, it's gonna come back. Like, you don't just learn this once and then throw it all out. This is important information. So what else can you think of? Like, what other points? Why else do we do CMEPs? Anyone wants to give an input?
For me, I think it's important because this kind of topic's what I signed up for the session, because like I just crossed this past year. So like I know the general stuff and everything that we learned and everything, but there's still like a lot of stuff about the organization that I may not know, or like just specifics and everything. And I think that's important. Like, once you become a member, like, you don't stop learning. You're not, okay, you're a member, that's good and fine. And it's great to do events and stuff like that, but you also should know about your organization, and you should know about the different things and different ways you can do stuff. So I think like the point of having a continuous learning experience is so like you don't get complacent with the organization, and so you can like still like further yourself and further your chapter's growth.
Yeah, exactly. I like what you said about not getting complacent. Like, there's always room to grow, new things to learn. And I think like once you hit there should never really be a time where you hit a spot where you're like, okay, I've learned everything there is to know about Tau Beta Sigma, because that's not true. I'm sure Siobhan and Emily can say the same, but yeah, there's always more to learn.
The other thing that I'll just add too is like, how do we show who we are as an organization, right? It's through our actions and what we do as a chapter. So that's partially, out there serving your band, doing your specific service project. But, I see Ivan said that they have done at Gamma Nu, mental health, self-defense, and how to take care of yourself. So that's telling me that Gamma Nu as a chapter, what they value is making sure that individual sisters feel supported in whatever they're doing. So choosing CMEP topics and content it's the way that you show your values as a chapter and as a group of people who have decided to do this thing together, right? So that's kind of the identity piece. It also bonds people and makes people more cohesive, but we show our values through our actions, and we can show our values through our CMEP lessons.
Yeah. Thank you for all your input. Those are all great reasons to do a CMEP. You can also just do one because you want to. But yeah, so who can do a CMEP? Spoiler alert, anyone can do a CMEP. You don't have to be chapter president, CMEO, VPM. Like, you can be a normal old sister that goes to meetings and you're like, hey, there's this really cool thing that I saw and I want to do a CMEP on it, or I want to do like a mental health one, or I see everyone's been like stressed out. We should do like a self-care moment. Like, it can be anyone. So yeah, chapter educators, these are typically the people you're going to see doing CMEPs, VPMs, MEOs, CMEOs, or chairs. So MEO, membership education officer, and continuing membership education officers. Like, for example, my chapter has a CMEP committee. So we usually do our CMEPs. Our committee chairs will do the CMEPs, or vice president. Or anyone that's aspiring to be those positions as well. If you're like, hey, maybe I want to be VPM in the future, let me try out a CMEP to see if I like that area. And then committee members. So if you have like a membership committee, a sister committee, a CMEP committee, anyone on those committees are great people to ask to do a CMEP. If you're like, hey, I've done all these CMEPs and I feel like the sisterhood is tired of hearing my voice. Do you want to do it? And just like changing it up. And so those are great people to ask, great resources to go to. You can also use your campus resources, like your director of bands, your sponsor, other music faculty, student activity officers, career services, student health, grad students that are on your campus too. My chapter's our chapter sponsor did a presentation, I think in the fall, of, like the history of STEP and something like that. He just wanted to do it, so he came in and did it. And then we also had a presentation on mental health from a campus organization too. We reached out to them and asked if they could come and share the resources, and they did. So use your resources, use the other organizations on campus. If you have like a website full of like registered organizations, go and scroll through there, see if they have anything that could benefit your chapter. And then other SMEs, national leadership team, so Siobhan and all her friends, your counselors, your curriculum committee, reach out to them. They're very nice people. One of our district counselors, Neil Blywise, did a ritual recap for our chapter last semester, and it was super fun. And then also honorary and alumni members and other organizations. Ivan, did you have a question or a statement?
No, I was just going to add something. So what, excuse me. So what Gamma Nu does is we also, towards the end, after we cross our new class, and before elections, we'll do them specifically over the officer positions. So each officer will give a little short PowerPoint. Hey, if you didn't know, this is my position. This is what I do. These are the 3 most important forms that I fill out. Here's an idea. Here's a spreadsheet that I have made in the past. Walk them through it a little bit. So that opens up more opportunity for people who might be scared to run for something and realize that, oh, it's not that bad, something of the sort, and it's coming directly from that officer. So they're able to answer the questions better than if it was someone else trying to go over another officer's position.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and thank you for saying that. Our chapter does something similar. Like, they give a little presentation on what each, more for like the exec board. They're like, this is what the president does and has to take care of. But that's a great way for people to see what they're interested in the future. And yeah, so anyone can do a CMEP. If anyone comes up to the president or whoever is in charge of your meetings, it's like, hey, I want to do this CMEP. Cool, they can totally do it. So yeah. Take it away, Emily.
So we talked about some of the whys, and we talked about who could do these things. And obviously all of you being here today, I imagine that you are interested in doing them or interested in advocating for other people doing them. But then we have to think about what the it is, right? What is the what? And these are just some of the questions that you might consider as you're trying to choose what your CMEP programs or activities might look like, right? So we talked about this when we were reflecting, right? What have you forgotten about since you went through your process, whether that was Overture or maybe you went through a little bit before that? So just some of the things, what have you forgotten about? What do you want to remember? And what have people forgotten about? The probably just as important as just content, right? What are the ideals and the purposes that we're referencing in the CMEP? So like any activity we do as a chapter, we always want to be going back and thinking, how does this fit in with the purpose of Tau Beta Sigma, right? The 5 purposes. How does this fit in with the mission statement? How does this let us live out the 5 and 8, right? So always kind of going back and grounding it in that. What does our chapter need to improve upon, right? Every chapter has something that they can be working towards. Maybe it's, you know what? We're really great, but we're disorganized. We're not good at planning. Like we need some CMEP. Maybe we'll bring in a professor from the School of Public Health who does organizational development, and they're going to talk to us about logic models and how to, you know, organize our program. Cool, do it. And then similar kind of dovetailing on that is how does this support the chapter's operation and function, right? How does this support where you all want to go as a group in serving your band? And then I think one thing that's really one of the best parts about continuing membership education, as opposed to going through the membership education process as a candidate, is we can start to focus now on our individual members and the skills and the things that they need to become more happy, more vibrant, more productive members of our band, members of our chapter, and just students, right? Just students at our colleges and universities. So things that add to a more positive experience for your individual members is where you can put it into your CMEP program. And then I think the last one is probably the most critical. You probably already have like 7 million ideas pinging around in your head about what you want to do, but it's really about also seeing what do other people want out of it, right? What topics do they think is important? Because it might be something that you just take for granted. Like you are a master wizard at time management. I don't need that, but somebody else might need that. So suddenly you can give that CMEP, right? So think about how do you want to ask people? So these are just some of the considerations as you're starting to think about what should I cover before we even get into the next slide. Some of the topics, right? This is sometimes my brain goes right to topics, but I try to ground these topics again in those other considerations and those other questions. And really the topics are very broad. So some of the TB Sigma knowledge, right? We did our history lesson. You could have, it's always good to go through at the beginning of the year and talk about, you know, who's on the national leadership team, who is our national council, especially after a national convention year. That TB Sigma knowledge, I think that fits in with the idea of like officer transitions, right? What are our chapter operations? Who does what? How do we function? Some of my favorite easy CMEPs are just relearning the song together, right? Right before ritual, let's all relearn the song. And then I think reflections on experiences, you know, this could be as simple as just a discussion. It doesn't have to be a full-blown PowerPoint presentation lesson. You could just throw out a reflective question, talking about our mission and vision statement, talking about how we're executing our purposes. So there's kind of reflections on experiences is another kind of topic for CMEPs. Obviously, we've hit a lot on this today, but I think we really want to encourage everybody to think more broadly about CMEPs in terms of it can be about those professional skills. It can be about leadership development. It can be about resume writing. It can be about communicating with one another. College is this long in your life, and the rest of it, you're going to be a professional doing something amazing in the world. So things that you can grab from Tau Beta Sigma that help you at the later part of your life and most of your life, we want to give people those experiences. So I think thinking about some of those professional skills really adds to our experiences as college students and as sisters. And then our other topic bucket could probably be like 7 slides. We just picked some of the big ones, right? So DEIA and inclusive recruitment, you know, thinking about a lot of campuses now are doing a lot of that work. So who can you bring in to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access on your campus? Hazing and risk management. It's always, not always, but it is the red stripe, right, for the Focus on 5 program to do the Kahoot and talk about risk management. That's continuing education. Band history and program, right, talking about something that's near and dear to your school, your traditions. And then advancing your musical knowledge or skills. We are a music organization, so bringing in that professor to talk about better breathing is going to benefit everybody. So just some other types of topics that you might consider as you're starting to plan your CMEP. Yes, you could do that as part of For Greater Practice, Alex. That is correct. So thinking about our national programs, they are structured in such a way that they really fit nicely with our continuing education. Is this me too, Riley? Okay. So you saw on the slides, right, for the Who is WAVA presentation, that there were some other, that person did a little bit more research, right? They dug a little bit deeper. So some of those TB Sigma resources that you can dig a little bit deeper into, Overture has a lot in there, and also in the appendices, there's a lot more information than we even put in front of the candidates. So that's a great place to go. Our Tau Beta Sigma website has a lot of information, and as well as people to contact to find out more. I also love digging into the old podiums, the podium being the national publication for the sorority. You can go back and see historic ones. You can go and read some really interesting articles. Those also could be springboards for ideas, because sometimes the articles are like, how to do a better job public speaking, and somebody wrote that up in the podium. Oh, that's a great idea. I could do a workshop on public speaking for continuing education. So it's also a place to get those ideas and those juices flowing. We've talked a lot about campus resources, right? I said to Riley yesterday, you know, I work for the National Park Service, and we were looking to do some cultural competency development in our staff, and we went to the local college to find the right people. You all are on colleges and university campuses, so you have access to those experts and those resources. So tap into them. They are there to spread knowledge in the world. So tap into those campus resources. And then those subject matter experts, like Riley said, Siobhan's friends. All of us are Siobhan's friends, but also we all have the national leadership team has a wide variety of sorority experiences and a wide variety of professional experiences too, that we're always looking to help bring whatever you need to your chapters. Your sponsor in DOB is a subject matter expert in a lot more than just running a band. I can promise you that. So you can always ask, what is something that you think the chapter needs to work on? Maybe it's communicating and not being as cliquey. Would you be willing to come and talk to us about that, about how you think we might be able to do it? Or can you recommend somebody? Always ask your DOB and your sponsor for that support. Your district councils, right? Other students or people that you meet in this workshop. Maybe you want to go ask Ivan for some help. That's cool, right? Ask people. You all are experts in Tau Beta Sigma right now too, as well as those honorary members and alumni members too. Everybody has a lot to bring to bear. And yeah, we're curious, who else might be, I want to back up. First stop should be your chapter members, right? First stop for expertise is within your own chapter. So, you know, I know this person has a big passion for this. They can help us out with doing a workshop. Let's do that. But who and what else might be other resources to go to? Siobhan, can you think of anybody else or anything else? Ooh, yeah, you can go and digging in those past district and national convention workshops for ideas. And if the people already did the workshop, they got the slide deck, so they're ready. And women in music speakers, absolutely. And yeah, and my friends are the same as Siobhan's friends. I want to be clear about that. Yeah, and I will put a little plug for the CVAs in that, you know, we're getting to have a lot of contact with a lot of different chapters. So we are always learning new ways to do things and new ideas. And I think the best part is that we get to kind of connect those ideas together to you. So definitely your CVAs are here to help.
Yeah, something that I've done is our chapter has a Google Drive that has like all the past vice president. I was vice president last semester or last year, and so it has like a bunch all the way to like 2014, a bunch of old like stuff. And so they all upload their slides and just abandon them. So it's been fun. It can be fun to like go through their stuff, see what they did. If there's anything interesting in there, you can pull it out and be like, oh, I found this in like the 2014 vice president's Google Drive and I thought it was fun, so let's do it. Yeah, that's just an idea. Also for the podium one, if you have podiums laying around, like we have a locker that has a bunch of older podiums, you can whip them out and you can bring them to a GVM or a chapter meeting or even like a membership education meeting. Be like, here's the podium from whenever 2017, which was years ago now. And yeah. Yeah. Yes, and tons of them online too. Yeah, the online podiums are great, but it's fun when they're in front of you. You can smell like old paper. Yeah, your old alumni. Those are good too. Like that, a reason why my chapter had our district counselor Neil come in is because he was an alumni of our chapter and we were talking about something chapter specific. So not only him being a district counselor, but also being an alumni of our chapter. Those were great resources together. We just got lucky, but.
One little like asterisk I'll put on alumni. I love alumni. They're great. They have a lot of things that they can share with you. But when you're thinking about what type of continuing education you might be asking for alumni, remember that the chapter that they were in might be different from the chapter that you all are in right now. So I would encourage you, if you're thinking about somebody coming in to talk to you about chapter operations or kind of current sorority things, you might tap more into like your CVAs or your district councils. But your alumni have this now professional experience, right? So they might have, are a hiring official somewhere. So they're coming in to do resume reviews with you. That's fantastic. So just thinking a little bit about like who at what point in their Tau Beta Sigma career, what they can offer. I think alumni are fantastic resources, but we got to remember that the chapter they were in, even if they just graduated last year, is a different chapter. So just a little asterisk I want to put on that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And yeah, we've had like alumni do how Tau Beta Sigma has helped me in my career. Those are great workshops that alumni can do as well. So thanks for saying that. And yeah, so now we have the CME Spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, we have short and quick CMEPs. So these are going to be like at-home activities, reflections, and like short little activities that take like 15 minutes or less. And then we have medium length, which is workshops and presentations. I would say like the WAVA one we did was probably a medium length CMEP, or more in like the middle, short and medium spectrum. It's a spectrum. So, and you know, those can fit into anywhere in your chapter meetings. And then full curriculum, mirroring the MC process and other longer programs. So that's more on the longer side. So when should we schedule these? That is always the question, because you don't want to take up too much of your chapter's time, but these are important things, so you should find the time to put them in anyways. So for the short and quick ideas, building into existing activities, so taking a few minutes during chapter meetings or other pre-scheduled events. If you have like a designated area for CMEPs, or like just a little thing, a song workshop that will take a few minutes. You can squeeze it in there so that everyone's already there. No one has to like go out of their way to attend these things, and it's just more convenient. There's also at-home activities and reflections. So you could share these things asynchronously, like through email to your chapter, send them like a little reflection question maybe to bring to the next GBM or chapter meeting. There's a lot of little worksheets and overture that membership candidates can use. You can take those and send them to your chapter too, and they could do them. And just like little at-home things, you could put them on like your chapter Slack or Discord or whatever you use like to communicate with each other, and then bring them all back together on whenever you meet and reflect on them together. And especially for these, you can consider the number of CVPs activities expected throughout the year. So if you have like a set number that you want to get through for the year, predetermined goal, these short and quick ones are going to be ways that you can meet that goal without necessarily like taking up a lot of chapter time, and like having to stress about, oh, where am I going to fit this in? Where am I going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. You can share asynchronously. So yeah, those are the short and quick ones. And then the medium length ones, so these are more like your one-off workshops or special CMEP events. So for those outside topics, pair it with relevant time in the semester. For example, my chapter always does a recruitment CMEP at the beginning of the semester before we go into recruitment week and have like new member intake. We talk about like recruitment language, reflect on our experiences and what we want to keep and what we want to change. So planning those things around, relevant time, what's going on in the semester, what do we need to work on? Like we said in the reasons to do it, like what does our chapter need right now? And then setting aside specific times. So if you run your chapter meetings in like the specific way where you have report times, like mine has a CMEP committee report time, that's when we do most of our CMEPs, so that it's pre-scheduled into business. We know what's going to happen there. We know how long it's going to take, and building it into that time and business so that it's not a surprise whenever we're like, hey, we have this thing. And then also building it into continuing education into committee meeting time. Emily brought up an interesting point yesterday when we were talking about this, of like, if you have a jurisdiction or bylaws committee and you want to talk about Robert's rules, it's cool to do like a little presentation on Robert's rules during that committee meeting. Like it doesn't even have to be to the whole chapter. Like, okay, we're the jurisdiction committee and we have to talk about the specific stuff, so we should be the experts on it. So working it into that committee time. And then consider your band and chapter operations and schedule as well throughout the semester. So like pairing it with candidate schedules. My chapter requires sisters to attend 2 candidate meetings per semester so that they are kept up with what the candidates are learning and, being the resources for the candidates as well as learning things themselves. So that's kind of built into the education process. But it's also important to not overload people. If it's like the fall semester, marching band's happening, classes it's midterm week, like think about when you're going to schedule those. If you have a calendar set before that, if you want to look at it and be like, oh, this is kind of a busy week. I don't know if doing a CMEP at this time would be the best. So just make sure you're considering those things whenever you're scheduling, especially the medium length ones, like workshops and stuff. And Emily.
Yeah, so thinking about, if you're just trying to start something in a chapter, I would encourage you to try to just, do a couple, right? Just do a couple. But by just doing 2 or 3, you put that together and you put that in front of the chapter at the beginning of the semester, that is suddenly a full program, right? It's pretty cool how it can come together really quickly into something. I think the key with like a full-blown program or something that you're putting together as a whole package deal, which I do encourage, is the reason why I encourage it is because then it's clear expectations at the beginning of the year or the term, whatever it might be, so that people have an understanding of kind of time commitment expectations. The other thing could be that you could put a suite of things and you could think about having people, choose their own adventure a little bit too. You know, you could put, you know, 6 at-home activities, and we really want people, we're going to release them once every other week. And I really would love people to participate in 3 of them, whenever that makes sense in your schedule this year, right? So that flexibility is really important. The clear expectations is really important. If you're going to put something together, it's sometimes chapters like to vote on this just as a group to say like, yep, we're agreeing to this, right? This is a kind of contract that we're entering into together, that CMEP, continuing membership education, is important, and we're going to do this program. Another kind of option, because you can totally be creative, but that also might feel really overwhelming. I've seen a lot of chapters go through Overture now as a full chapter throughout the course of a year, right? So we got those 8 modules, and you've got, you know, 14, you got 28 weeks of school, and you do one every 3 weeks together, or you work through it a couple of lessons each, or 1 lesson or 2 lessons each chapter meeting. But by putting yourselves through the same information, you know, it's built for you. The activities are there, the reflections are there. And that's really a powerful way to bond as a group. The other thing, like Riley mentioned, we definitely encourage folks to get involved with the candidate process, especially if you have a smaller chapter or you got a smaller class coming in. You know, you recruited those 2 members in the spring, but you really want to have robust discussions. Encouraging people who are active members to take part with candidates in the process makes for a better experience for everybody too. And I'll just put a little plug, stay tuned for more from the curriculum committee, because we are working right now on a program that will be put out there that, you know, similar to Overture, in that you can pick it up and you can teach it with a lot of the topics that we identified. So DEIA, history of the sorority, organizational structure, and our values, things like that. So stay tuned, keep your eyes open. And then the last question I feel like is often asked, and I'm going to fly through this pretty quickly, is how to get that buy-in. Because obviously I know all of you here are pumped. And that's really great, but how do you bring the rest of your chapter along with you? I think the key, the number one thing, is reasonable and explicit expectations. And to figure out what is reasonable, I think you should have conversations with your fellow chapter members to see what people think is reasonable. Because what you think is might not be what somebody else is, and you probably got to meet somewhere in the middle. Like we talked about with who can teach these and who can choose the topics, generating it from the chapter and not just having it be one person who chooses everything really helps with everybody getting excited about the topics and getting excited about different people getting to teach those lessons. Like we talked about with scheduling during correct times of the semester, respect for time and other priorities is really critical. So not scheduling things during midterms, really thinking about your band service requirements and your band requirements, and making sure that this doesn't conflict against those, because we need to keep our priority pyramid, right? Yourself first and foremost, your academics next, your band program, then your chapter operations. And CMEP is honestly at like the top of this too, because some of the things your chapter might need to get done before this. And then the last 2 pieces are, you know, make it fun, make it bonding, make it reflective, make it participatory, and make it memorable. Have it be an active fun. Make it participatory, make it something different that you all can do together, and make it worthwhile. Make it connect back to our purposes, our mission. Make it a skill that people want to work towards. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop a Google Doc into the chat. And because we are running close to time, what we're going to do is, so this Google Doc, it's sort of similar to how, if any of you were around when we were trying to come up with ideas during COVID about, you know, how we were going to pivot our operations, we looked to everybody else and we said, what are you going to do as a chapter? So now we're looking to all of you. You've already shared some of these ideas and you've heard some ideas. So we would love for you to drop them into this document. Riley and I did start some ideas. Please tell me that it works. Hopefully it does with the permissions. But the hope is that we're going to crowdsource this. You can add to it tonight. And then tomorrow we're going to post it in the Overture Facebook page. So that way other people can look at it and also continue to add to it. It'll be kind of looked at by curriculum committee members. We might, you know, modify some things based on best practices or push ideas together, but we really wanted your ideas. And while you're opening that, hopefully it works. I see people in there, so I'm happy. Okay, I just will kind of put the plug, if you want to go one slide, right, Lee, for where to go for more information. And you can work on populating this. Awesome, you're already doing it. So where do you go for more information and help? Because 1 hour in June might not be everything you need, and that's okay. So like I just mentioned, the Overture Facebook group, it's a community of practice, or we're trying to build it up to be a community of practice of other active members, district officers, as well as curriculum committee members. So those are some life members who are still involved and working with their Siobhan's friends. So please request to join that group and we will click yes. Just make sure you put your chapter name and that you agree to the rules. So some other folks you can go to, your district VPM, they would love to help you. They also know your chapters more closely. They know your district. So your district VPMs and council members and counselors, and you can find their contact information on that website. Yeah, curriculum committee, like I mentioned, we all get these awesome emails whenever you email Overture at TV Sigma, and we love for people to just ask us if it's just a question of like, hey, I had these 7 ideas. Can you tell me which one might be the best fit? Yeah, we'll answer that. Or I'd love to sit down with somebody and brainstorm what a program would actually look like. Does somebody have time? There's a lot of us, so we'll find some time. And then I did put Siobhan on here because she is the membership expert. She might push it to the curriculum committee just to kind of find the best SME for your specific question, but she knows everything about membership and expansion that we could possibly want. And so she's also the expert and the person to go to. Yeah, degree repeat, I like that. Oh yeah, and Riley and I wanted to end on an inspirational quote. So yeah, you want to end with it, Riley?
Sure. We worked hard scouring the internet for this Benjamin Franklin quote. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. So just especially involve me and I learn, making things interactive and fun. Pro tip is to take activities that you do with your candidates from Overture and bring them to your chapter. Those are always fun. Just getting them involved. Those are the best ways to teach information. Yeah, that's all we have.
So yeah, people can continue to add to the document, but I'm curious what questions people might have.
There's a lot of great stuff happening on here. Learning about KK, yeah. We have a, one time my chapter did a switcheroo type of deal because our Kappa Kappa Psi chapter has meetings the same time as us. So me and my president went and taught about Tau Beta Sigma to their chapter, and then their VP and president came to ours and taught. So that's a fun thing too, if you have a KK Psi chapter at your school.
Also cool if you have, Sigma Alpha Iota, Phi Mu Alpha, or any other musical organization. There are our music friends, our cousins. So invite them over.
Yes, we've done those with them too. They rock.
So can I flip a question to everybody? Is there one